President Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, is accusing the president of engaging in a pattern of behavior that, quote, looked like obstruction of justice as a way of life. CBS News has obtained a copy of Bolton's book, The Room Where It Happened. It is scheduled to be published next week by Simon & Schuster, which is a division of Viacom CBS. So let's get straight to Paula Reid. She's standing by at the White House for us. Paula, good to see you. One of the most significant claims that Bolton is making in the book is that President Trump tried to get Chinese leader Xi Jinping to help him win re-election. We know that the president said something similar on camera a few months back, but what is Bolton saying about this specific instance?
That's right. Remember, in 2016, the president ran on a platform promising to be tough on China. And in this 600-page book, Bolton details events in different meetings, including one where he alleges that the president was pleading with Xi Jinping to help him get reelected by buying a lot of agricultural products from farm states that he needed to help him get reelected. I mean, this is pretty significant. This is one of the first real tell-all books from a high-ranking official. And of course, Bolton is someone who has served in several Republican administrations. Even though Republicans are trying to dismiss him as someone with an axe to grind, this is a pretty significant allegation. Now, I asked the press secretary of the White House about this earlier this morning. We read the portion of this book. And while she did not personally dispute the accuracy of that, she deferred to another White House official, Robert Lighthizer, who has called that claim, these allegations that the president pleaded with China to buy agricultural products to help him in 2020, completely false.
He also talks in the book about the president's conversations with the president of Ukraine. These are some of the conversations that are sort of at the center of what led to the president's impeachment. How does Bolton describe President Trump's attitude towards Ukraine?
Well, in describing the events that resulted in the impeachment inquiry, Bolton writes that the president wasn't in favor of sending Ukraine anything until all the Russia investigation materials related to Clinton and Biden had been turned over. Now, what's really interesting here, though, is that Bolton argues that the president during impeachment should have been investigated for matters far beyond Ukraine. He says if he had been investigated for these other incidents, China and other countries, that they may have been able to persuade more people that high crimes and misdemeanors had occurred. But of course, Bolton did not agree to voluntarily participate in the impeachment proceedings.
As you know, Paula, President Trump, of course, is hitting back hard against those claims from John Bolton. On Twitter, he said the book is made up of, quote, lies and made up stories. We know that the Justice Department is asking a federal judge for an emergency order to stop the book's publication. The president has called John Bolton. I'm looking at his Twitter feed right now. He calls him wacky John Bolton. He says the book is getting terrible reviews, which is, of course, important to the president. Many of the ridiculous statements he attributes to me were never made. I want to note, though, Paula, that one of the White House strategic communications folks, Alyssa Farah, tweeted this. Two things can be true at once. Bolton's book is largely a work of fiction full of untruths he knew better than to say under oath, and it contains classified information damaging to the U.S. and our allies. So I guess the question would be, I'm going to ask you to put on your lawyer hat, Paula, is which is it? Are they lies? And if it's classified information, don't you have to provide to the Department of Justice the specificity as to which claims are actually supposed to be classified?
We know the Justice Department has made numerous last-minute efforts to try to block the release of this book, but clearly they haven't been successful. This book is now in the hands of over half a dozen reporters. We got our hands on it. We've read through it. We are reporting out the contents. So clearly they haven't been successful. And the big question, to your point about classified information versus false information, is that when they detail in the legal documents, the process, the review process that this manuscript went through, it specifically says the Justice Department admits that in late April, the White House official who was reviewing the manuscript said she didn't have any more notes. She said the process was ongoing, but she didn't have any more notes for him. It took about another month before Bolton's attorneys received notice that another official who had been in additional high-level meetings was reviewing the manuscript. But at this point, it does not appear that they did everything they could or were flagging additional classified parts. Now, Bolton says that he has done everything that he needed to do to address the national security concerns before this was published. But right now, one of the big questions for the White House is, okay, if there's classified information, what is it? What are you going to do about it? Are you going to ask people not to report it? Or is this really not about classified information and instead about protecting the president from claims that are clearly not false?
So you pointed out that Bolton did not testify during the impeachment hearings. And so he's taking a lot of criticism from Democrats that are basically saying, look, if you thought this, this is something the world needed to know, then when we came knocking, why didn't you answer the door? Representative Adam Schiff was on CBS this morning. Here's what he had to say.
The fact that he wasn't willing to testify in the House and was willing to tie us up in court for a long time, but willing to tell the story to a book, to make money for a book, tells you a lot about John Bolton's character. Whether his testimony would have made a significant difference in trial, it may have if it led to further evidence and further witnesses, but we'll never know. And this is the price the country had to pay for John Bolton's putting profit above country.
So you gave us a little bit of insight into Bolton's opinion on the strength of the impeachment case, but why did Bolton not testify?
Well, when it was in the House, when they were investigating in the House, Bolton said he would not cooperate unless he was ordered to do so by a judge. When things moved to the Senate, he said he would only testify if he was subpoenaed, and Senate Republicans blocked that possibility. But it's interesting, the Trump administration is using this to their advantage today to undermine his credibility. They're saying, I think in the tweet that Vlad mentioned by Alyssa, they're saying, well, it's easy. You can say almost anything in a book. You can always be sued for things that you say that are not true. But if you're under oath and you testify, that carries a lot more weight because there are criminal penalties if you lie under oath. Whereas if you go and lie to the media, there's no real criminal penalty for that unless you say something false about someone who can sue you. So there are two sides to this. While a lot of folks are calling him, not patriotic for not cooperating in that, and then sort of Monday morning quarterbacking in this book saying, hey, I know what they should have researched. I know what they should have investigated. Even though he didn't cooperate, the Trump administration also has an angle on this that is a legitimate argument. And they're saying, hey, if you know all this, why didn't you say it under oath? It's easy to say in a book where there's no criminal penalty, but under oath, there's a criminal penalty if you lie. And is that why you didn't participate?
All right, Paula, before we let you go, let's ask you about the breaking news out of the Supreme Court, which has now ruled that Dreamers can now stay in this country, dealing a blow to the Trump administration, who had sought to end this program that was signed by President Obama in an executive action. Any reaction from the White House? As Anne-Marie noted when we were coming to you, Paula, Chief Justice John Roberts has sided with the 4 liberal members on the Affordable Care Act, on DACA, and on LGBTQ employment rights. Something tells me he's probably persona non grata in the White House, but this is a very interesting development, and I'm curious if the White House has any reaction as of yet.
It is. So far, I've been looking at you. I haven't been looking at my phone, so I'm going to check with our producer, Kristen. No reaction yet, right? No reaction. Live breaking news from Kristen. Still no reaction. But we will see the president around 3 o'clock today. I will have the opportunity to ask him a question. I'm sure this will come up. But as our Jan Crawford, a Supreme Court expert, world-renowned, said, this is not a terribly broad decision. They're basically just saying you went about this the wrong way. And we've seen that before with the Trump administration trying to pursue immigration restrictions, not always doing it in the most nuanced way. For example, their travel ban, when they've been rejected by the courts, they've taken it back to the drawing board, gotten a little more sophisticated, a little more nuanced, and then got back, and ultimately, in some of those instances, been successful. So the big question to the White House today is, are they going to try to do this again through different means? And right now, it takes on heightened significance because we're going into 2020, and this administration needs to do a political assessment about how trying to pursue this again will impact them in their political standing, or how not pursuing this again could hurt them with their base.
All right, Paula, thank you so much.